So the people that we're going to be hearing from are Lorraine Lee, who is the head of editorial at Prezi. Now, Lorraine is a top-rated virtual keynote speaker and a leader at the intersection of editorial and tech. Now, with more than 300,000 followers on LinkedIn, Lorraine is passionate about helping professionals become more productive and successful. Now, in her work as the virtual keynote speaker, she speaks to Fortune 500 companies, tech firms, top-ranked universities, nonprofits, and many more, covering a wide range of topics, including creating engaging virtual presentations, building your brand on LinkedIn, as well as managing remote teams and designing impactful hybrid meetings. Now, at Powerfly, we have been lucky enough to get to use Prezi. I find it fascinating, so I can't wait to hear more from you, Lorraine. And as the head of editorial at Prezi, Lorraine collaborates with thought leaders and subject matter experts to create compelling videos that educate and inspire millions of people on topics across business and education. Now, Lorraine is going to be joined by our own amazing Candace Collins. Candace is one of our talent advocates at Powerfly, a job that I used to hold, and so I know exactly how hard she works on a daily basis. So Candace, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with Lorraine and us. I'm going to turn the floor over to you ladies. Take it away.
Thank you so very much, Meg. It's always a pleasure doing events with you. Thank you for joining, everyone. Thank you, Lorraine. How are you today?
Doing great. I'm so excited to be here with all of you.
I'm excited too. Now, just to talk a little bit before we head straight into the questions, what we've noticed that the workplace has gone viral pretty much. That means video is one of the most important skills that we need to learn. And one of the biggest opportunities for you to stand out is pretty much to get your ideas heard. But presenting on video can be overwhelming and very uncomfortable at times and nerve-wracking for some people. We're experiencing Zoom fatigue and burnout, and many of our leaders don't know how to break out of the status quo. Now, in this session with Ms. Lorraine Lee, Editorial Director at Prezi, she will teach us how to appear more confident and competent on video tips and tricks to keep your audience engaged to your content and best practices to optimize video presence. So just to give a brief example or what we will be expecting. So welcome again, Lorraine. We're happy to have you, and we're here to discuss to use video to our advantage in our virtual workplace. Let's start by talking about how in-person discussion and presentation techniques do not necessarily transfer well on on-screen discussions and presentations.
Yes, so that's exactly accurate. So in person, we can see each other's facial gestures, our body language. It's just a lot more dynamic than it is over video. But video is the way of the world now, and there are ways that we can start building that presence, connecting with people over video. And I think the thing that we need to remember is that video is different, and we need to do different things and use different techniques to be able to connect with one another and to understand one another and to engage one another. And so learning those skills is critical in today's workplace, especially if you want to succeed and be noticed by your peers, by your clients, customers, leaders. And so it's really understanding that there is that key difference and then learning the skills that you need to accomplish those.
Thank you so very much. Now, what steps can you or can someone take to be more confident on video in a professional environment? What are some things you can say to us about that?
The first thing that I would say is practicing is really important. So if you have a presentation, I still get nervous too. It's completely natural to get nervous. One of the reasons that people get nervous though is that they're not prepared. So if you can get kind of that preparation part down, you're going to feel a lot better before you present. So I would say practice a minimum of at least 10 times. I've heard before for every 20-minute presentation, you would practice 20 hours. So 1 minute, 1 hour of practice. Now, we don't all have that time, but if you can get to that point, of course, you'll be very prepared. So practice is key. I would also say that you need to make sure that you have the right setup. So, in my keynote, I talk about ways to build confidence and competence on video. That includes things like making sure you have the proper lighting. So I have 2 ring lights on either side of my desk here right now. I have a softbox in front of me, making sure that you're using visuals effectively. So you can see here, this is, something different, something that stands out. and then that you're curating your environment. So you can see my background, it's pretty minimalist, it's simple, it's clean. I'm trying to come across, professional yet approachable. So making sure that you have your whole setup correct as well with the visuals and the whole essentially virtual environment. I used to call that curating your background, but with all the advances in tech that we're seeing with video, you can see we have this limited space here. It's really about kind of building out this whole environment to create a true virtual experience. And then the third thing I would say, I came up with something called the T method, which is helpful for people to remember when they're just getting started. So the T method is the essential things that you need before getting on any video call. So T method stands for tech, energy, and aesthetics. And that includes everything from including that you have the right external webcam, that you have a strong, memorable intro. So not just like, how are you today? How's the weather? But something different. What are you working on that's gotten you really excited? What was the highlight of your weekend, for example? And then making sure that you look your best on camera as well with the aesthetic. So again, that's the lighting, the visuals, and some of those things I referenced earlier.
Well, Lorraine, I see that you have an entire production happening.
Yeah.
What are the key strategies that you would say that we could use to increase audience engagement via video?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. So the first I would say is movement is really important. And I think, what a lot of us are used to seeing and why Zoom fatigue is such an issue is that a lot of us are screen sharing. We are trying to, translate the in-person experience to virtual, but screen sharing is not the way to do it. And then when we do screen share, our faces get really small. It's hard to connect with people. And then the content takes over. And then usually the content is not very well designed, and it's someone talking about one slide for 10 minutes. Of course, that's going to make someone kind of tune out because our brains get used to seeing the same thing very easily. So you need movement to keep people's attention and keep them engaged and focused. So I would suggest trying to make your presentation more similar to a show or movie where you're including videos and stickers and fade-ins, and that's maybe a more elaborate version, but even just moving through your slides more quickly and not sitting on one slide too long is going to help people feel more engaged. And then another one I would say is state changes are also really huge. And I launched a course recently, and state changes have been really critical to getting people to pay attention. So, state changes basically mean you are changing the states of what you're seeing right now. So right now I'm talking, a state change might be playing a video, asking a question to the audience and asking them to chime into the chat, breaking up kind of that monotony and that same thing that they're seeing. Because again, our brains get very used to seeing the same things, after a certain.
So in this case, we need to do a quick video and then come back to questioning again.
Yeah, or get people chiming in or filling out, a survey or I don't know what, but yeah, just constantly changing different states of your meeting or your video call will be another way to keep people engaged.
I really like that. I think that's really good because the human attention span is 10 seconds. And even now, when you have TikTok, 3 seconds, next. So from time to time, we're getting very short. So totally, I think that would really work. We just have some more questions. What are some of the overall best practice to optimize video presence? What would you say?
So the first thing I would say is to optimize your framing and your eye contact. So framing, you can see here, I have just a little bit, about 3 fingers worth of space above my head. You want to show a little bit of your torso so that people can see your hands. You're going to want to, if anyone in the audience wants to try it out right now, stick your arm out. You should have about an arm's length of distance between, myself or yourself and the camera, and then adjust the height accordingly. So framing is going to be really key. Candace, I don't know about you, but I still get on a lot of calls where the camera is, too high or too low or too close, where we're seeing just the face. Your framing looks good there, but it's distracting, and you don't even, there's scientific reasons for this. So for example, if the video is on someone's face and this is all you're seeing is their head, and I can actually show that here, all you're seeing is the head, and you're not getting those other cues from the hand gestures, and it mimics what we experience in person. Like if someone gets really close in our personal space, it makes us feel uncomfortable, right? So
Oh,
it's because of this here. This is, if you just saw me on camera like this, like it's not going to be as engaging, right?
yeah.
And so when we're this close, it mimics what we feel in person, and it activates our amygdala, which
Mhm.
fear is one of the things that gets activated by the amygdala. So when you're on a video call like this, it's uncomfortable. But again, this is kind of the right framing that you want to have. So framing is going to be really key. And then I mentioned eye contact earlier as well. You can see I'm looking straight ahead. I'm right below my camera. Eye contact is really important to connect with the audience, because I think a lot of us see people, talking to us and they're kind of looking like this. Or sometimes, the worst is when they're looking at an entirely different monitor and they look very distracted. And it's, if they're looking like that, you're like, are you paying attention to me? Like, it just doesn't feel very good. It's like talking to someone in person and they're just looking away or looking at their phone. They look distracted. So eye contact, framing and eye contact, I would say are two really important things there to optimize your video presence.
Thank you, Lorraine. And tell us about your LinkedIn course and how the audience can enroll, because I think you have some really quality stuff that you're telling us, because to us, this makes sense, but we're not always aware of them that could give us that real level of results that we're looking for. So can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So I actually have two courses. So the first is the LinkedIn Learning course that you mentioned, Candace. It's called Virtual and Hybrid Meeting Essentials. And so far it has over 10,000 learners. I would love for all of you to join that group. So meetings are another area that I'm really passionate about and which are really, really critical to helping to reduce Zoom fatigue. So you can find it on my LinkedIn profile. I have it featured there. Or if you have a LinkedIn Learning account, you can just search Virtual and Hybrid Meeting Essentials. And then I think LinkedIn Learning gives you a free month if you don't have an account there. I also have my cohort-based course, which is a little bit more interactive. That course is really focused on the essential skills that you need to thrive in the virtual office, because those skills are different, as I mentioned earlier. So we're focused on video and virtual presenting, virtual and hybrid meetings, and then LinkedIn. And then you can learn more about that at lorraineklee.com/join. So I just actually completed the first cohort. It was super fun. Like, I feel like I loved interacting with the students. We got to engage and do different activities, and it was really helpful to hear their questions and be able to answer them. So, both two different types of course formats, but both equally valuable.
Okay, that sounds good. We have a question from the audience. Do you have a specific type of equipment / recommendations for audio / video clarity? Headphones versus laptop, camera versus external webcam, boom versus boom mic, etc.
Yes, this person sounds like they've done some of their research. So yes, definitely an external camera. I use the Logitech Brio 4K, I think it's called, and I find that works well as long as you have good lighting. But definitely we recommend you getting an external camera, whether it's this one or another one, because it makes a really big difference from the camera that's in our laptop. In terms of audio, I have I don't know how you pronounce it, Fifine is the brand from Amazon, Fifine microphone. A lot of people suggest that Blue Yeti is kind of the industry standard, but I think this microphone has worked perfectly fine for me. You can adjust the volume and things like that. And I think it has a similar effect and it's much cheaper. So I'm perfectly fine with this, and hopefully my audio sounds good to all of you. I have a clicker, so if I'm doing a presentation, this is the Logitech clicker. This is really good. In my keynote, I talk about standing up. That's one of the ways to kind of exude energy on video calls and in presentations. So a clicker will be really helpful for that. Ring lights, I have just two off of Amazon. I would recommend getting ring lights anywhere from a foot to 16 inches to make sure that you're getting enough light. And then the softbox, again, from Amazon. I would recommend getting a softbox that allows you to adjust the different color tones, because depending on the time of day and, if you're wearing makeup or the color of your skin, you're going to want to have the options of the different lighting.
Okay. What do you think of virtual backgrounds?
That's a great question. I get asked that a lot. So I think virtual backgrounds are good for certain situations. So in a business setting, I like to avoid virtual backgrounds just because our brains are already working overtime on video to interpret what we're seeing, to read people's facial gestures. And when you have a virtual background, unless you have a green screen, chances are it's going to, as you start moving around, it's going to start, cutting off parts of your body. And that's very distracting, or show parts of your background. And it's really distracting when I'm just trying to focus on you and I see all these things moving. However, in like team activity or team bonding settings, I think it can be really fun. For example, let's all choose a scene from a movie and let's guess what each movie is. So that's my personal opinion on virtual backgrounds. I think good for a more fun setting. For professional, I prefer just to have a clean background and you curate it and set it up as you want it to appear.
Thank you. So we have 2 more questions from us. If the audience have any more questions that they'll ask, feel free to give us list the questions in the chat. Well, we have one just came in. Is there a tip on how to reduce glare from eyeglasses?
Yes, another frequently asked question. So especially with ring lights, you're likely to see the glare. So what I would recommend is you move the ring lights a little bit higher up so they're kind of coming in a little bit more from the top and not straight on. That's going to help a lot. And then also reducing the glare on your monitor if you can. Another thing is the softbox, I think, has a lot less glare than the ring lights, and usually the light is actually stronger. So I would also recommend looking into something like that if you are wearing glasses often and seeing that glare.
Okay, thank you. How many times should one practice a presentation before the meeting or the face-to-face interaction versus via camera?
Yeah. So I would say at least 10 times. And I think 10 times will get you to that point where you feel comfortable with the material, where you don't necessarily have to, be looking at a script. I mentioned this earlier with Candace. I've also heard for every 1 minute of presentation, practice an hour. So 20-minute presentation, practice 20 hours. We don't all have that time, but if you can, that will definitely make you feel a lot more comfortable and look very prepared. But I would say a minimum of 10 times. And if you need to, write out a script at first so you kind of know the general talking points you want to read or you want to say. I do this as well with my keynotes. And then the more you practice, the more you'll see, oh, I don't actually need to be looking at the notes, and you're kind of internalizing the content.
And I find that to be very helpful because the more you go over content is the more your brain gets used to it. So once your brain starts to get used to the idea of what is being said, then you can be more confident in your approach in presenting it. So totally understand that one.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Any more questions coming in from the audience? We have one more to go, but just asking our audience to send in any quick questions they have before it's time for Lorraine to go. In the meantime, do you have any other tips for feeling less nervous on camera?
So practice is definitely one. Another thing that I would say is having the right setup can actually help a lot. And so I talked about lighting a lot, and we don't realize the effect that lighting has. But if you look good on camera and you look professional and you don't have the dark background, or you're not backlit, like that has a psychological effect. You feel good about how you come across on camera. Like anytime I turn on the lights for a call and I can see my face brighten up, like I instantly feel more confident. So I would say that's one thing you can do. Visuals, again, these are also really helpful for someone who gets nervous. So when I present and when I used to get more nervous, I got nervous because it felt like, oh my gosh, everyone is just all eyes on me, judging me, and it's just me on the screen. But when I started adding the visuals and I could point to things and people would see me walk through the content and be like, wow, what are you saying? What is that? Like seeing that excitement and engagement from the audience does give you that confidence boost as well. And, a lot of people are visual. 90% of the information processed by the brain is visual. 80% of people remember what they see versus what they hear and read. And 65% of people identify as visual learners. So if you're using visuals well, you're going to just generate more engagement. Your audience is going to be more tuned into what you're saying and actually retain what you're telling them, which of course is going to, make you feel good because you're giving a great presentation that people are actually interested in and listening to.
Thank you so very much, Lorraine. It has been a pleasure talking to you about this and all the things that you have taught us. Just to go it over a little bit, just to pretty much reiterate that we need to or have better lighting. So ring lights could be a great addition. External cameras, because sometimes even my camera is not that bomb as yours because I'm using the regular laptop mic and also video. So we can get an external camera for the video and an external mic. All of these can be sourced online at Amazon that you can pretty much get shipped to your home. So that's key. And also we can start engaging our presentation in more of it's a stage click pretty much presence, that 1 minute talk, 1 minute animation, 1 minute video, 1 minute for questioning from the audience, so everyone can have a better interaction, because or how is it, or span or attention span is so short. So engaging that on a whole would really take us a far way. And also, you have an amazing LinkedIn following. And of course, I see your clicker working, pointing to LinkedIn at Lorraine Lee. We can go and follow her for more addition on guidance as it relates to this. And she has 2 courses that she's doing. One-on-one is more of a one-on-one approach, and the other is just an overall understanding of how to do not get fatigued with Zoom. I think I have it all covered. Did I miss anything, Lorraine, or anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, so I just like to reiterate, please connect with me on LinkedIn, especially if more questions come up later. I'm happy to answer those. And I also post very often on this topic. So that's linkedin.com/in/Lorraine K. Lee. And then I also would like to, if any of you are interested in these topics that I mentioned before, those virtual skills that you need to accelerate your career, to thrive and stand out this year, you can subscribe to my newsletter at lorraineklee.com/learn.
Thank you so very much, Lorraine.
Thank you, everyone.